this brand new episode of Know Your Scientist series presented by Kshama Ahmedabad Academy of Sciences. Today we have with us Professor Rajaraman Ganesh from IPR Gandhinagar. We welcome you, sir. Our first question is, when did you decide to pursue science?
Like I was saying before we started, so I was sort of born and brought up in the south, so from Hyderabad, and then I moved after the first 10 years to Chennai due to some family issues, as I said. And then since then I've been in Chennai. So we are from very orthodox family. You know, I don't know whether you've heard of people more orthodox than South Indian Brahmins. They can be super orthodox.
Okay.
And with a lot of focus on academics. So they believe that if you don't study, then you're done. That's the kind of family. And lo and behold, then I never used to do that precisely. So schooling was from a very simple government school, you know, which, like I said, we used to sit on the floor, and most of the times we are, you know, getting up, and there's always two blocks in the floor where you're sitting, because you're trying to patch up the trousers all the time. Our grandparents are struggling to keep our semblance at the school, keep up the uniform and things like that. So it used to be sort of challenging. The most important thing is that we have to come back to home at 6ish and then make sure that the home rules are followed.
Okay.
That used to be really challenging, but then we survived. So nothing to do with academia, no science, no math, only playing on the streets, like I said.
Yeah.
Street games, marbles, and all kinds of games. So life used to be like peaceful from 6 to 6.
Okay.
Beyond that, it used to be
So
a little more organized. So I studied in a very simple school. I mean, that's very humblingly simple school. Okay. A government school, but they taught us well. And in those times, in the 1980s, in Tamil Nadu, they introduced lunch to be provided to government school children. And that used to attract a lot of people, a lot of young people, young students, because most of them were very poor, and then the food is an attraction, not the studies. So it's called midday meals.
I've read about
it was introduced by, at the time, whoever was in the government. And it became so popular that suddenly the number of people who were dropping out of the school dropped.
Okay.
And because people used to come for goodies, food, and we used to have good time. So it was a great time. So nothing connected to science at all.
So
till 10th standard, till 11th standard.
Okay.
I studied in the same school till 12th, I think. Then something happened. In 12th standard, something flipped.
What was that thing?
Yeah. So the most important thing is a connection with the teacher.
Okay.
So what happened was, one of our... So we used to have the standard things like you also must have had. Local language, Tamil. We had Tamil, you must be having Gujarati. And then English standard. And then math and physics, chemistry, biology. And then they used to have one more subject, I forget. Playing the games. What is it called? Physical education.
Yes.
Now, all this is fine. Physical education was great. Tamil you don't have to do much about. And you don't have to, you just pass and you survive. No red marks on the mark sheet, you're done. And English was a very hard subject at the time, because at home we speak local language.
Tamil.
And in government schools, even today I guess it's true, you're not taught to speak in English at the school level itself. Okay. So that was there also. So it's called an English medium school, but they teach you in the local language.
Oh.
So I'm sure it's also true today in India, many parts of India, I guess, including Tamil Nadu. But maybe it has become much better. So English used to be a challenge. But then the teachers we got in 12th standard, 11th and 12th standard, were fantastic. Both of them were like tremendously good teachers. The first thing they said was, learn to say, I don't know.
Great.
That's what is, and I still today I follow that in my life. Is that if you figure out to say honestly, I don't know, 99% of the problem is solved. That's what they used to say. So they used to encourage us to speak in English and then say a few things in English.
That's great.
And slowly I started liking stuff. And then came the switch for physics. A physics teacher probably as healthy as I am. And his name was, I think he still is, Sundar Rajan. He inspired. He gave a class. He took a class in which I think he talked about some aspects of pendulum and things like that. It was so inspiring that suddenly it made a connection to things. I mean, I could see that something changed, and that was the turning point. So the key for everything is a very good teacher. And that flip, and people were surprised, and suddenly after 11th, 12th, suddenly things started looking different. I started behaving differently because I started asking questions. It was fun. So that was the turning point.
Okay. So is that why you love teaching?
I think so. I'm not sure if that's the real reason, but I think most of the times what happens is there are two ways of getting interested. One is you're good at something and therefore you become much better in that because you want to do things that you're good at normally. Good. And also something because you got interested in something and therefore you want to be good at, right?
Right.
So in my case, I think a little bit of both happened. So I got interested in physics questions. And I also I have a feeling that very early on, I think right after 10th, 11th or something, some curious questions were posed to some of us at home, surprisingly.
What kind of questions?
It might sound a little
silly,
little philosophical, but then that's what really happens. For example, one of the things is my grandfather, maternal grandfather, he was into a lot of spirituality, not religion, spirituality. Meaning he would ask questions like, aren't you surprised that you're putting a bunch of atoms together and then suddenly it becomes conscious and then it becomes, does things of its own. Those questions used to shock me off. I said, how is that? It's a very good question for a physicist to ask.
Right.
I think that's where things started turning. So a kind of a very good teacher at school and an ambience at home where people ask questions which are sort of very intriguing and no answers. Then we don't have Google or we didn't have internet. So all we used to do was to go to libraries and look for things. And I didn't find simple answers to any of these things. So then it started. So it's a combination of a good teaching person at school and some curiosity-driven questions being asked elsewhere.
Okay.
Nothing to do with religion. It just, where does this come from, this whole thing? That's where it started. And it's still the same questions. Okay. In fact, I'm still there. I have no answers.
So you were aligned back then in childhood and you're still with the same alignment?
I think around 12th. And then that started. And that's the turning point, basically.
Great. So before 12th, did you believe that you learn more on streets than in classrooms?
Yeah, even now I think. You sort of, there is a tendency for people to learn. I think I feel very sorry for today's kids because on the streets, if you play, you have a way of developing a coping mechanism. For example, in every distribution of kids in the school, in a given street, there's always a guy or a girl who's a bully, and there's always a guy or a girl who is the weakest.
Yes.
So you learn to define the weak person and you learn to fight the bullies without actually spelling it. So street playing on the streets is a foundational thing for a child to develop, according to me at least. So unfortunately, in today's world, everything is happening on a computer.
Yeah.
I'm sure you never played on the streets.
I did, sir, but really back then.
Yeah. So I think it gave me a lot of things. I tell my children also that you should be on the streets all the time, playing. Street means not literally on the street. If you have a colony, you play in the colony. Right. Be safe, but play well. So make some friends, make some pseudo foes, who all eventually become friends. Eventually everybody becomes a friend once you grow up. So it's important,
Okay, great, sir. For this interview itself, I tried to look for your CV, more details about you to know and make some questions personalized. But I found that it's not real. You don't put much on internet. Why is it? Is there some purpose with it, or?
I think there's nothing consciously. Not that I want to publicize or something. Okay. The business that we are in, for example, the one I'm in, is essentially asking questions. either in science or in classroom or something like that.
Right.
So I didn't see a need to put anything there. If there is some requirement, people will find a way.
Right.
Otherwise, I'm happy where I am.
Okay. Great. So, how would you describe your journey from 12th standard to this stable position that you think now you are in IPR? Please describe that.
So, well, I think nothing was planned. Like most, I would like to tell most students that absolutely nothing was planned. So, you start doing things. You start do things that you really like, okay, and slowly things will fall. You walk around here and there, and eventually you will reach where you think you should be. And if you don't, if you plan too much, you actually end up spoiling things. You just let it be. Be at it. General direction. You keep moving. That's what I did. I mean, I didn't plan things like I have to do this and I have to do a PhD or something. I just wanted to ask questions. So whichever framework which allows me to figure out how to ask questions, I just did that. So after my 12th, I did a B.Sc in Physics from Chennai. Then I moved to University of Pune to do my Masters.
Yes.
Then I moved to Institute for Plasma Research here in Gandhinagar to do my PhD.
Yeah.
And again, nothing was planned. At M.Sc, I thought I'll go to Indian Institute of Science after that. But then randomly the first call came from Institute for Plasma Research for the interview.
Great.
So I just didn't think further. I said, fine. I mean, all I want to do is to figure out how to ask questions. Either it's IISc or Bangalore or
Right.
Ahmedabad it's okay. Gandhinagar it's okay. So I just joined. And then since then it has been absolutely wonderful. I mean, lots of opportunities to learn and do things.
Yes. I just stalked you on LinkedIn to know more about it, and I found that you were at IPR for like this 1 year, and then South Korea, and then it was Switzerland for 3 years, and then back to associate professor 1, 2, then G, and then H.
Right.
Could you please describe how did it went and this difference between what was it?
It's a standard thing in India. Once you finish your PhD, you have unfortunately the mindset is such that you have to go abroad and come back, write some good papers to get into a faculty position. And that thing was absolutely clear. I mean, I always wanted to be a person who would interact with students. So before I came back from Switzerland, I always had opportunities to go into industry. For example, in near where I lived in Switzerland, there is a place called Montreux, and around it they have this Nestle chocolate company.
Okay.
So in Nestle you have this. I don't know whether you have seen how the chocolate fluid works in a machine. It's beautiful. It's a very high viscous fluid until it becomes a chocolate. So there was an opportunity to do a modeling for that, and I think there was almost an offer, but I didn't go in that direction. Similarly, I had several offers to work to industry. So the first question I ask is, am I allowed to interact with students? They said no. I said no. So I also didn't go. So when I came back to India, I just came back because at the time the leadership at Institute for Plasma Research, they said you come and do whatever you want. You teach, you do research, you do both. We have a very good graduate school. I said, this is it. This is what I wanted.
Great.
So, and I was more comfortable because I spent already 4-5 years at Institute for Plasma Research as a student. Okay. So I know the ambience. I know most people at the time.
Right.
So it was very comfortable. So I walked back, and so before that, of course, before Switzerland, I spent a year in Korea. After I finished my PhD from IPR, and then came back after spending few years in Switzerland. An institute called École Polytechnique Fédérale. It's a government polytechnic institute. It's more like a university in a place called Lausanne. So I came back after that.
Great. At IPR, what would you consider your top 3 contributions?
I think none. Well, it depends on how you evaluate it. It's a very loaded question.
Okay.
Contribution would mean like I said, interacting and teaching, interacting with young students. So let me give you a flavor about how these places work.
Yes, please.
Most people would probably know. So typically research institutes in India and elsewhere, they have 2 sides to it. especially IPR has actually three sides to it. One is that its Institute for Plasma Research, as you might know, is focused on figuring out how to solve energy problems through a route called thermonuclear fusion. So where you try to trap very hot medium in the magnetic field and try to get fusion. So it's very challenging both in terms of concepts, physics ideas, and also in terms of engineering and technology ideas. So it's truly a multidisciplinary subject in this.
Okay.
That's the main purpose of the institute as it is advertised.
Okay.
Now within this there are people who do research to solve problems with this object oriented, meaning you have a project oriented goal. They have 3 years, 2 years or 1 year and do this. They are not expected to ask questions for the fun of asking it. You have to just solve it. It's like almost mundane work in scientific area. Okay. I'm not trivializing it. It's a kind of work.
Yeah.
That's one group. And then other set of groups, they ask very high-end questions to develop technology related to fusion.
Okay.
Then there is another group of people who ask very fundamental questions and try to answer it. It's an academic side of the problem.
Okay.
So I'm more into the academic side of the problem in the institute. And this is a true thing for almost all labs in the world. So many of them may not have the technology or the mandate like we have. For example, if you pick so we are, as you may know, this lab falls under something called Department of Atomic Energy. And they have several labs in India, I think lots of them, 16, 17 of them.
Okay.
And most of them, you would see that they have a local mandate for some project, also have an academic side and a technology side. So it's a normal structure within this department. Like for example, in Ahmedabad is very famous for space related activity due to Vikram Sarabhai and other people. That comes under the Department of Space. Again, they have an academic side, technology side and a mandate. Same structure.
Right.
So I am into the academic side of it, where I teach the PhD, first year PhD students. Then of course unfortunately some people decide to do PhD with you. So those unlucky students, I guide them and then they try to finish them off, quotes and quotes, and piggy ride on their papers and get my work done. So that's another side too.
Okay.
So that's a structure.
As you said, you would love asking questions. Which was your favorite question answered or favorite answer?
Well, I mean, it depends. I have several kind of questions. Like I said, some questions are more philosophical. And most of the questions that I normally tend to ask are questions related to my work, of course. Questions that bother me, that bothers the people who are setting up a big fusion project. So for example, one of the big projects that we have in IPR is called a tokamak. It's a machine which holds a very hot medium, mostly ionized, and the medium is called a plasma. And it's very hard to hold it because they are very hot compared to, to give you a feel, it's like really, really hot, like between 10 and 100 million Kelvin kind of hot, very, very hot. So to hold it is a problem, and because you want to keep it hot, because you want to get the fusion going, two particles, two ions will come and fuse together. So for that you need a lot of energy to come and ram towards each other to overcome what is called as a Coulomb barrier.
Okay.
And then this whole process happens in a medium which is very, very unstable. So you have to keep it quiet when the process is happening. And we have to make sure that this hot medium which you generated by putting in so much efforts, that shouldn't be lost.
Yes.
So most of the questions that I've asked are connected to how to control these and let them plasma medium be quiet, not produce a lot of transport towards the wall.
Okay.
And unfortunately, like an unruly child, you do anything, it keeps escaping. So you will have to figure out new ways of holding it.
Right.
And most of the questions are connected to issues in what is called as plasma turbulence, because When you have such a volatile medium, you always have, it has the ways of going out of the magnetic field, and you try to hold them back.
Okay, could you elaborate more about plasma turbulence? Imagine me as a first year BSc student.
Well, you must have seen, for example, turbulence everywhere in the nature. For example, the first place where we all see turbulence is our favorite place, washrooms. Right? If you go to your washroom, as a child, I used to play a lot in the water in the washroom. One of my favorite things is to open up the tap, close the tap,
And
open
play-
up the
play
tap,
with the
and
flow.
play with the flow.
Right.
Right, that's one thing. And you must have seen that when you open the tap a little slowly, you see a nice pipe-like thing.
Right.
And a little bit more, suddenly the whole thing wobbles and falls.
Almost everyone would have
Seen that?
Yeah.
That's a transition from a nice, well-behaved baby to a naughty baby. It's a transition to turbulence.
Notorious scientist.
Very. So that transition where it flows nicely and then at one flow speed, and increase the flow speed only a bit, and suddenly it becomes turbulent.
Right.
The transition happens in plasmas also.
Okay.
And it's easy to figure out what is happening in the nice flow, which is called technically a laminar flow.
Laminar.
But if it becomes turbulent, like I said, a slight increase in the speed,
Right.
then it becomes crazy, very hard to control.
Okay.
Now the question is, this is a very simple example. And in the fusion machine, you have very hot plasma. Again, it has very different properties. This whole medium is always sloshing, turbulent.
Yeah.
And to understand this, the idea is to figure out how to quieten these fellows, and also in spite of the turbulence, how to get your work done, meaning fusion done.
Right.
So there are lots of people worldwide who are focusing on how to solve this problem. We are not the only ones. And many, again, worldwide, every program has the same structure, more or less. There is a technology side, there is a R&D side, and there is an academic side. Okay. And apart from that, in other countries, which unfortunately we don't have in India, is a very strong connection of national labs like IPR. National lab meaning it's funded by central government.
Okay.
In many other countries, they have a very strong connection to the local universities. There's a very strong synergy between the national labs and their activities and the local universities or even national universities. So there is a lot of activity, give and take, that happens both manpower wise, exchange of PhD students, master students, undergrads. Plus they also have facilities where whatever they want to put in the big machines, part of it is produced in the universities, tailored for some big machine. And then in the process, there is a lot of knowledge exchange.
So we lack that in India?
I think so, very badly. And there are a lot of issues. I don't know where to start. So this is one of the things which is sort of very unfortunate. But I mean, it's not that the leadership doesn't have the intent, but somehow it doesn't seem to translate into something very, very meaningful at the university level. For example, in IPR, there are a bunch of activities where people from nearby universities do come. But they come for very simple things like, doing a PhD problem or part of the PhD work, or to get access to data in some experiments. Okay. But then what we should be doing is to have a faculty level interaction where university faculties come here. And then every university nearby, at least within Gujarat, because we are the only lab in India today for doing plasma physics, fusion physics. At least within Gujarat, we should have a university level tie-up. In fact, a long time ago, I proposed an idea called, you must have heard of IUCA, Inter-University Center for Astronomy and Astrophysics.
Yes. So
I proposed to the founding director at the time that we should have something called Inter-University Center for Plasma Physics.
Okay.
And IUCPP kind of thing.
Right.
And he liked the idea, but then it didn't take off for some reason. So that center is very important, where students come and faculties come, and then we have laboratory experiments going on at those universities.
Okay.
And that will, so what is a sort of this is a really snowballing effect here, a very good one, is that if you make this compulsory, then a college faculty, a university faculty, would have to teach this to graduate students and undergraduate students, which basically means that the governing bodies like UGC will have to make these subjects compulsory in the curriculum.
Great.
Right? So there is a snowballing effect here. So then you will see exactly a synergy that happens between such institutes which are focusing on this, plus the nearby universities. And it doesn't stop there. So the students would come, learn, they go back, like, I went abroad, came back. I had to come only to IPR, but why? Because there are no plasma physics requirement or opportunities anywhere else in the university. Why? Because you don't have programs anywhere.
Okay.
Why? Because you didn't do an IUCPP problem. Therefore, when you come back, you have plenty of opportunities to work in universities. The growth will be exponential. Jobs will be there. So it's an excellent idea according to me. But then,
yeah, I see a long-term vision with this idea, sir. Like the students would be really working on ongoing real-time problems and projects from institutes like IPR or PRL, or say new institutes like you were telling. So if given you the authority to make such large-scale changes, any 3 big changes except for this one you would like to make?
actually a lot. I think it has to start from somewhere below. Okay. So first thing is, even in research institutes, where people come with a lot of focus on certain areas, the people who end up teaching, they should not be doing it because they are told to teach. Teaching has to come as a passion.
Yes.
Because I myself realized that a student who had absolutely no interest in anything except playing on the street, or probably having fun all the time, suddenly there was a flip because of a bunch of few good teachers.
Great teachers.
Fantastic. At that time, we were to look up to the teachers.
Okay.
So the main thing is this idea of if you don't do anything else, okay, let us do teaching. That's criminal. Teaching is the most important profession for a country like India, for any country for that matter, where I think we are told we are the youngest country in the world, is what I'm told. I don't know. 50-60% of our population is around, maybe 25-ish, 40-ish or whatever. So, such countries like us, especially, we should be focusing heavily on investing heavily on getting good people who can teach. Okay, that is true for both school levels as well as university level as well as research institute level. So that's a big change that we require at this institute. The bane of this country was unthought through. What is it? A process of starting a procedure called privatization of education without thinking through the aftermath of what would happen. For example, I don't know you are aware, in the early 90s, I think 1992 or something like that, or maybe even before that, they started this business of, there was exploding population. The government school infrastructure was not capable of handling it. So they said, let's give opportunity to private people. What does that basically mean? You're telling people who are not interested in teaching or anything else to help you. That's what the government has done. And the process, why would they focus on teaching if you don't keep checks and bounds on them? They will make money.
Right.
Making money means, you don't care anything else. You just make money. So teaching is exactly not that. Teaching is all but making money. And that's what we did. We ended up giving it in the platter, our education system. And then, of course, there were, now you know how the Indian teaching structure is. It's terrible. I mean,
pure business.
There is no control on most of the stuff. The private education is very fancy, but nothing is taught. The government infrastructure is pretty bad. The teaching faculty at all these private people, they paid piddly. People who have nothing else to do go for teaching there. That's exactly what, like I said in the beginning, should not be. People who are passionate should be spent. And why do people not go? Because the pay is not very good.
Okay.
This is the problem. Is that therefore we have to start respecting teachers and pay them like you pay any other person. Right. Who's, I mean, if he's a passionate and is a good teacher, irrespective person. So what will this do is that it will change the whole dynamics. For example, somebody who finished masters and passionate about teaching, he or she would go to colleges and universities because it's a lucrative job, number one. Finally, you have to survive. Right. Plus, it lets him or her do whatever he or she wants. Plus, tremendous prestige. That should come. And that is there in other countries, other developed countries. We were like that many years ago, maybe 1,000 years ago, but that's just talk. Now we are not. So this is one of the serious things. One thing I will change is to make sure that the privatization part is checked once in a while. As payment for the teachers would be made very good. And don't say non-profit only on paper. Really focus on education. I mean, I don't understand why a private guy would put money in building a school unless he makes money. So it's a joke. I don't know how this whole thing works. But then, okay, you make money, but then you also respect teachers, give them enough facilities, let them go to conferences, get them state-of-the-art access facility for research, so that they can tell good things to the students. Students in turn can really learn lots of things. Right. And if there is a very good teacher who is good at research and teaching, then let him or her set up a lab, give money for that. So even at the college level, we should promote teaching, because of that there are lots of repercussions. For example, one of the biggest thing is because the students don't learn. Why? The teachers are not great. Why? Because the teachers are pretty average, because they come here because they have nothing else to do. Not good teachers come. Not all of them. I'm not saying all teachers are bad. But I'm saying they're not like, crazy about teaching. That's the problem. Now these kids, after the 12th standard, end up again privatization of education. Because of the privatized education, medical colleges have become private, engineering colleges have become private, except just a few IITs which take 15,000-20,000 people, and IISers which takes 10,000. Our population is like crazy. I mean, so except these great institutions, I'm not always putting down institutions. I mean, there are lots of nice schools, but it's not enough for us. So what happens is these kids who therefore go and pay a lot of money and don't end up learning anything, become doctors, engineers, and therefore right there is a corruption at that level where, not the regular corruption. I mean, it's an intellectual corruption where the person who has not learned anything in the medical school becomes a doctor. How? Because somebody sets up a hospital, because it's privatized. So everywhere, lawyers, medicine guys, every part of human existence is corrupted because of this privatization being not checked. And there is no proactive involvement where to make good teaching possible. So I think that's one of the major problems that we have. We need to really address it. That's one thing which I would change.
Address it from the roots.
Absolutely. Otherwise, it's very hard to change this system. That's one.
Great, sir.
Second thing is to make it compulsory that if there is a university, it has to have a research component. Okay. And there should be a research component, and interested students can do it. Of course, not interested students can do something else. I'm not saying all students should do research. That's not what at all I'm saying. You do whatever you like, but there should be enough spread in the universities or colleges. That's the second thing. And the third thing, which is sort of very important, is to ensure that the teachers at all levels get comfortably paid. Because finally, all of them is looking for a stable life. Right? If you're happy at home, you're happy everywhere else.
That gets reflected in your work.
Right. And I think the Gujarat knows everything about it, because everybody has reasonably above average wealth in Gujarat. I mean, compared to the rest of the states. And most of us are happy, at least I am, sort of. Though I don't do any business or something like that. So the main thing is this. So these three-step process. You start at the school level and make sure that the education system, you do privatization. I understand. Public-private partnership is important. Government requires help from private company, but then you keep bounds and checks. Right. Ensure that everything is taken care of. I mean, that's one thing. This will avoid this kind of a corruption, where I said, you don't produce doctors who don't know first thing about doctor, engineers who build things which bridges fall, and very other walks of life. And then a research component necessary, which will make the entire system synergetically good, because then the UGC will be forced to set up a curriculum where you get all kinds of people in this. Right. This is just about one area. So these couple of these three things should be sort of taught in tandem. For example, now I'm told there is a NEP 2020 policy. I'm not sure in ground reality, ground level, how much of it is actually implemented. Many colleges, again, there is all kinds of things, On paper, you have everything, but then you don't have it. I mean, I don't want to name colleges, but I've been to places where the policy is already in place, a credit system in place, but the students don't even know what is NEP 22. Teachers also don't know. Shocking. Don't be surprised. I've been to places, I've been to committees. I don't know. So, again, all this is because government looks only at papers. I mean, there's an excellent system called NIRF ranking. Again, yes. Even there, submit papers. It's an excellent system introduced by government, but no bounds and checks, no reality check. So just getting it going, implementing, bringing a system is not enough. You have to force it to work. Bounds and checks. That's the basic thing.
Okay. Coming a little back to your life, though. As a teenagers, or let's say early 20s, we are usually told that don't look for work-life balance right now. Go all in, make something good. Like it should be after your 40s or 50s. Like work, like you say, 19 hours a day, or would that be in agreement with how you look at life? How would you make a work-life balance, let's say for early 20s?
That's a very difficult question. Because, at every 10 years, this whole idea changes.
Yes.
I can only tell how I lived, so I don't know whether it was balanced or not, but to me it looked like even though when we are BSc or that age that you're talking about, MSc, we used to have loads and loads of college work to be done, but then we always had fun.
Exactly.
So much fun that, and not much, we didn't have all the modern things in Chennai at least, not in our economic level where we were. I think I was like just below or hovering around the poverty line kind of thing, because my parents, especially my father, my mother passed away when I was 5. So my father was going through a very difficult time when we were doing our 12th standard and BSc and things. So I used to work part-time. So I studied in evening college and I worked in daytime in some various small shops like Photoshop and this shop and that shop. Good. So I'm just not saying this because of work-life balance thing. I'm saying that in spite of all this, so much fun.
You still managed to have fun?
Yes.
Could you share a memory, please?
Yeah. So one of the things that we used to really have is a movie club.
At that time?
Yeah. So many of our friends, I lived in a place in Chennai where all the movies are made. Okay. So in the ambience, there is a lot of discussion all the time about movies and this and that. So naturally, some of us became movie
enthusiasts,
critiques, not just enthusiasts.
Critics.
You would criticize, and this light is not good, and the cinematography is not great. Who did the screenplay? It's very bad, and I should have done it like this. I would have done it like this.
At what age was this?
This is like 20.
The early 20s.
This age, yeah. So we formed a small club, and this is good fun because you used to, once you are known to be very critical, then the guys who make movies, they would always want you to come and see the movies and criticize, right? You get free tickets.
Okay.
So it doesn't put a hole in your pocket, and then you do your stuff, you enjoy, and then this you do. So many of my friends were regular day college goers.
Okay.
I and few others were like evening college goers. But then we used to watch movies after the college, and then be very critical of this and that. So that was one part. Other part is playing. So we used to play plenty of games, even the evening, carom boards and badmintons and things like that. Okay. And of course, we also used to have very strong local clubs for these things. meaning not organized clubs.
Yeah, it's
There's just a bunch of people who doing these things for fun. So there was some kind of work-life balance, but then it's very different than what kids have today. I mean,
exactly. How would you guide kids? Let's take me,
I don't know,
or
good question.
this your son. Let's say about this work-life balance thing.
Again, you should have fun. Very important to have fun. Right. Fun is everything. I mean, you're living for fun. You're living for happiness. Okay. So you should do what you like, but you should also be in your college or whatever that you're learning. You should become. I use a word called employable. It is nothing to do with the standard employment. Mm-hmm. It basically means that tomorrow, if something happens to your family or some incident happens where you have to earn your living, be useful. So you have to know what you're doing. For example, even if you do, many kids today do Python coding, even in the 12th standard.
Yes.
That's one thing. But then you should parallelly learn skill sets in whatever you're doing so that you can become useful to someone without the other person spending money on you for training you.
Okay.
So you're employable directly. That's what happens in other countries. Is that the kids do things for their own interest, out of their own interest, without getting any money for it, for small companies and some organizations, as just for fun.
Great.
Okay. And in the process, they learn to be very useful for the company. So they're getting out of the college, they can be employed or they can do further studies. All right. So that is very important. So in the work-life balance question that you asked, you need to, of course, be good at that. You have to learn your skill, right? You will have to become, then from this point of view, employable. I mean, I'm not saying you should be hired for a job, but you should, the person who talks to you should know that, oh, okay, so this guy knows the stuff I want to be done, he or she, and then I'm happy that I don't have to train him further with my money. Okay. Let him give him a part-time job, you finish this and get back to me. That thing should happen in every walk of life. I know I'm talking about Python because I do coding all the time in my work, so that's the only example I can think of. But I'm sure people can understand what I'm trying to say. That's very, very important to get that readiness to be employed. But find ways of having fun. One thing which I used to do is read books. Okay, and I think my average between 12th standard and by the time I finished PhD was I used to read typically 3 books a week.
3 books a week?
Yeah. And not because I had a target. This math I'm doing now, averaging. But I used to always find something very interesting too. Right? So the process, what happens is, remember I told you, my English was scary, abysmal, till my 12th standard.
Yeah.
Because I started reading a lot, automatically vocabulary picked up.
Okay.
Sentence formation picked up. Expressing ideas became much better. And lo and behold, I could write my first research paper without looking at English dictionary in the 1992-93. So it became very natural. So I'm not saying everybody should do this. I'm saying therefore that's part of work-life balance. And none of these books were connected to my subject or physics or whatever I used to. So it used to be all kinds of things, geopolitical stuff, ideas on history. I used to love, I still love history, a lot of nature stuff. I have whole science fictions and I have a whole range of things.
Great.
So again, this work-life balance business, you have to find something which you enjoy, 50% of that, and something that you enjoy, but then at a second level, but it's important for you to become useful if necessary, if it comes to that. And of course, other activities put together.
So with keeping this employability thing in the back of mind, we should do what we think is fun. Am I understanding it correctly, sir? Correct. Okay.
And also we should do what you think is little necessary, because not everybody has, everybody in India especially have a financial background at homes which are comfortable. There are all kinds of people. I mean, like people like me who had to absolutely nothing, because luckily my father was one of the hardest working person that I know. He pulled us through the whole thing by working very hard. Not everybody gets this lucky, and And I also got a job, part-time job. Not everybody gets that lucky too. So we need to find a balance. There are, I think, even in this country, there are the economic scale is so disparate. Socio-economic structure is so widespread that everyone is unto his or her own local situation. But the bottom line is have fun, make friends, but then make sure that you go out every once in a while. And importantly, keep touch with your friends. I still talk to in fact, when I was coming for this meeting, this discussion, I was talking to my friend in the car both of us were kneeling down in my school every day because headmaster used to find us doing something naughty, and so we're still friends. Okay, so keep in touch. Thanks to WhatsApp, you can do it nowadays. So
nice. So a message you would like to give to a kid, let's say someone who's right now today kneeling down because being that naughty, who's inspired with this podcast, what would you tell him or her, like about the path of life, what to do?
I think just take it on the roll. I mean, it's okay. It's not going to be the end of the world. Everybody gets punished, and nowadays I think it's not even allowed. Corporal punishment is not allowed in schools. The parents will go on hartal. Yeah, that's okay. I'm saying I understand what you're asking. So it's a very small stone. Remember that it's very close to your eye right now. So it looks like the whole world is blocked, but it's a very tiny stone. It will go away. Okay. So take it easy. Don't get into extreme action, extreme steps. Everything is going to be nice. There is a very famous curve about in pediatry. Every doctor, pediatrician shows this to parents, anxious parents. The curve is the height of the person versus time. Okay. So some kids shoot up and stay at the same height. Some kids go very slowly and go to the same average height. In a long time, everybody is going to reach the average height. 5.5 in India, maybe 6 in America, whatever. But you will reach there. It's just a matter of time. Let it be. Don't take extreme steps and do dumb things, harsh actions, inflict something on yourself and your family. Take it easy. Keep the stone away. That's the main thing. And have fun. Be as naughty as you can. Bother your parents. But don't get into something which is irreversible. That's very important. Nowadays, so much access to media and this and that. It's pretty hard to... People get stupid ideas in their mind. So stay away from that. Have fun. Make friends. Once in a while, study. Keep the numbers okay so that parents are not having a heart attack. But then I'm damn sure every one of us will be there where you want to be, provided you on an average know where do you want to go. So that will come only after your 11th standard or 10th standard or something like that. So you have plenty of time. So
greatly explained, sir. Greatly explained. Yeah. So now we would move to concluding this. What would your concluding message to our viewers?
I don't know. I mean, like I said, do things that you like the most. But then if you're not sure what you want to do right now, give it time. Give it some time. You will find. Not everybody is born with a flash and a good idea saying that, look, I will be this. It comes to everyone. So if I can become something, anybody can become something. That's the key thing.
Okay. Let's say for viewers who are early into this research field, who have figured it out, like let's go to the research, some qualities you would like to point out to become another Dr. Ganesh or something similar.
Okay. One thing about research is, from far it sounds very fancy, but it's a lot of hard work. Okay. So when you write a paper, the person who sees it from outside will only see a finished product. Paper written down and things like that. But it's like they say in English, the devil is always in the details. So when you start working out a problem, you see that there are tiny hundreds of things requires to be fixed. It requires mostly patience and hard work. So when students come to me for PhD joining, everybody makes that mistake. So they also make the mistake of joining someone. So the first thing I look for, without telling them, of course, is that luckily when I teach, I already gauge very quickly. In the first 5 hours of the interaction, I basically know most of the students because of my experience, what he or she is capable of. Luckily, I have that capability. So most teachers would have it. If they're teaching and doing research and guiding, they will know. So the main thing which I look for is, I'm not a very bright person. Okay, I'm not a genius or something. I'm okay. I survive. I'm hardworking. Not as hard as I would like to, but I have other digressions like watching movies or reading book or having fun. I like cooking a lot, so cooking. Nowadays I don't cook, but I used to cook a lot. So what I look for in a person who's aspiring for a research career is 99% hard work, and 1% or 0.5% intelligence in the scale of 0 to 100. And the remaining 0.5%, which is very important, is honest reporting. So whatever you find, however dumb it is, when you're doing everyday work, you should talk to your boss or your guide or whoever you are collaborating, your friends. You might even get completely dumb answer. It's important to be honest while you're talking to your research. Or it's true for every walk of life, but particularly in research. So, of course, if you are it's a very smart guy, very intelligent, great. But I always found in my journey of teaching and graduating, making people get their PhD from 2005 or something till now, is that it's very hard to guide a very bright person. Very, very bright people have very strong opinions, and in this country they also get into some strange socio-economic framework mentally. So it's very hard, according to me. I may be wrong by huge margins, but I would prefer people who are above average intelligent, very, very hardworking, with honest sense of reporting. That's it. Everything else is workoutable.
Great. So that was this episode with Dr. Ganesh. We would like to make a second part of it, sir. I see you got a lot of stories. So
okay, sure.
So that was it. Thanks a lot for being a part of this series.
Thank you for having me. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for the patience. Yeah. Thank you.